one of the things I talk about most in therapy is an aversion to making mistakes. And it's just so weird that my career is based in making a ton of mistakes. I think it's like almost like exposure therapy.
I'm Charla Larston. I've been a TV writer for almost a decade, but it wasn't that long ago that quitting my day job and moving to Hollywood was nothing but a pipe dream. After lots of failures, many mistakes, and many lessons learned, I've now written for 7 TV shows, 2 features, and sold 3 TV pilots. I've done all this through imposter syndrome, burnout, and with zero roadmap. On the Working Writer podcast, I pull back the curtain on breaking in and teach screenwriters and creatives how to thrive both personally and professionally. Without further ado, let's get to work. Welcome to another episode of the Working Writer podcast. Thank you so much for joining me once again. My guest today is Rekha Shankar. Rekha has worked with me on Grand Crew. She's also worked on Animaniacs, and she was also a head writer at College Humor. Rekha, in this conversation, talks about making mistakes. We talk about her time at College Humor, and we talk about her advice for how to make it in a tough industry. I think you're going to love this episode. Rekha is awesome. Without further ado, here's my episode with Rekha Shankar. Rekha Shankar, welcome to the show. So excited to have you. You're such a rock star.
Oh my God, Charlotte, get out of here. You are.
Did you know that? I think you know you're a rock star. You're a rock star. I have so many questions for you because I feel like I know you, but like I don't know you, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, who is you? Like, who is this? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Tell me the whole story from the beginning.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
And you want it through a writing lens?
You know what? Before we get to the writing lens, I kind of just want to know literally who are you? Like, where did you come from?
That's awesome.
Like, what is your family like?
Yes.
And then from there, like, how did you get into the writing? And then we can get into the writing. But it doesn't need to come first. Yeah.
Love it. Okay. So I was originally from Connecticut. Whole family is Indian immigrants. Moved to the Philadelphia area when I was like 9. And I would say from that time period in Connecticut, I would say the person that I was quite aimless. And I know that I'm talking about a 9-year-old.
You were a child, right? Yeah.
I was a true child. Definition of a child. But I would say I like didn't do any homework. I like cheated on lots of tests in elementary school. And like, I think
not Indian like at all.
Well, exactly. And I think it's really different from who I am now.
Interesting.
I like didn't do work ever. And my parents, I don't remember getting the hammer laid down. They're pretty, like, everybody want to be like, Indian parents always strict. Indian parents do be strict, but sometimes Indian parents also don't talk. So,
well, what kind of Indian parents did you have? Like, where specifically are your Indian parents from? Are you South Indian?
Tamil Nadu. Yeah.
And is that a culture
Kerala,
thing?
Right?
I did just go to Kerala, and it's my favorite place in India, and I love it.
I've heard beautiful.
But
so culture,
it's beautiful. Yes.
South Indians are all about the education, much like many Indians. They love it. So it's actually kind of freaky that my parents didn't like freak out at me. Maybe they thought, maybe I'm also overestimating how bad I was. I just know that I was like cheating on tests and stuff and falling asleep in class.
Wait, but are your parents like, are they not the norm? Like, are they very weird for Tamil parents?
I would say they are not weird. Here's the interesting line. There's a type of parent that's like, I know you have a test on Friday, and that I'm like, you better study. My parents have not one idea, one single class I have ever taken. And it's not because they didn't want me to get good grades. Just like, and I get it. The idea of like knowing the minutia of your
schedule. Yes.
Life
it's too much.
Seems crazy to me. If you were to be like to my dad, name any class, name any single class, I think he'd be like, I have no clue.
Okay, cool.
So in that
and wait,
way,
were you an only child or you were?
No, I have an older sibling. And so like
maybe that's what it is.
I think too, because in the baby
they put down the hammer. Yeah.
Something. Yeah. But also, to my credit, when I moved to Philly, I just saw the praise that like my older cousin, sibling, everyone was getting for like doing well in school. And I was like, what the hell? I have to shape the hell up. And I made a conscious effort. And I don't remember being scolded. I literally remember the day I came home and was like, I'm going to read ahead in the textbook and study. And I'm just going to take a ton of notes. And then there was like 2 days later, there was like a pop quiz and it included some of the stuff I read. And I got a really good grade. And I was like, whoa, this is very powerful.
Yeah.
And then
it's like heroin.
It's truly heroin. And then I became absolutely simply addicted to work.
Yeah. No, addicted to praise.
Addicted to praise. And I was always like a really big TV watcher too. Like anything that could be done in the home. I had like very home-based person.
Right.
So it kind of was this interesting mix of being like really industrious, like self-imposed industriousness and loving TV. And that kind of dovetailed into the type of person I am in this industry now. But I ended up going to film school for college at NYU. And that is where I really saw those two things kind of shine, because I was the only Indian person I had ever seen in that school until actually meeting Anu Valia. And I had such a different background. I wasn't in the arts before going there. I went to like biomedical research camp when I was 15.
Right.
I was fully trying to be a doctor and then was like, why am I trying to do this? I have so much more interest in this other stuff. Like I've always been such a TV watcher, but not even just like casually, just like thinking about how it's made, why it's funny specifically. Grew up watching, I was like half raised by my grandparents. So I watched so much TV Land, so many old sitcoms. This is what a lot of immigrants watch when they come here. Like, why are we ignoring her?
Why am I trying to be a doctor, dude?
Why the hell would you want to be and also, I actually thought, like, I wouldn't want me to be my doctor. Somebody who's like, I should probably be a doctor. I'm like, get away, don't be my doctor. That's crazy.
That's exactly what I think of that. It's just like, why would you want me to work in a hospital? Like, I don't want to be there.
I actually consider it a community service that I did not become a doctor, because you should not be a doctor.
I agree, 100%.
Because somebody thinks you
told you to. Yeah.
If I found out that my current like OBGYN is like all up in me and it's like, yeah, my parents really thought I should like get out.
Get out.
Leave.
But also shout out to all the people who are doctors because their parents wanted them to be. No shade, let's not fucking
there's
some
no
people really got it like
it.
that. Yeah.
Some people can still manifest that like
they can manifest
it. And that like drive to do it. It's just like,
yes,
especially when you go to school. Like one of my best friends is a doctor, and I saw some of her med school like peers that are like, kind of they're the other type that are like, I have to get an A or I'll die.
Right.
And like, I'm supposed to be a doctor so that mommy likes me. And you're like,
scary.
So I went to film school.
So you're like an accidental Indian overachiever, but it's not on purpose. It happened on accident.
My parents were not strict. They did not yell at me about grades and stuff. It was just very self-imposed.
Still worked. It all worked.
Still worked. Wow. Hey, it worked. They got what they wanted. It worked on me. But I took that energy into film school, which was unusual because like a lot of the kids in my classes, I would say, were not as interested in follow through. I'll say, like, many film school projects go incomplete, go unedited, go unwritten. Even so, I found a cool kind of niche for myself and just being like, I'll do I will finish anything. And I think that just helped me learn. Not that
I love that the niche is doing work.
But I do think some people really get stymied by like completing something that is bad. And I'm like, of course everything I made was bad. It's supposed to be bad. I'm 20.
Right.
I don't got shit to say. I don't know.
That is something that I find so unfortunate. Like that's the only word that I can say for it, because it's really real. It's really true that like there are people that literally will be stymied by the fact that what they're going to create for the first time, mind you, something they've never made before is going to be bad. And it's like, yeah, it better be. Otherwise you're a savant and you'll be the president or something. But anyone can be the president. That's not the point. But it has to be bad. That is the universal order. So I'm just like, you're stopping the universe by not doing your stuff, you know?
And I think that's partly why I liked writing and editing, because it was such a safe space to create something really bad, because
I love that.
I could go and tweak it as much as I wanted.
Yes.
It wasn't like you're on set and I'm like a cinematographer and it's like, I got the shot. And it's like, well, now you live with this shot. The shot was shot.
Yeah.
And it looks bad. And it's like, I could edit it and be like, ooh, this sucks. And kind of just like move stuff around.
I love that.
Yeah.
You're also very East Coast, but you're not like, it's like you're East Coast, but you're not like East Coast.
Okay, go on.
You know what that means.
On. You mean because I'm like crazy?
You're that. But then you're like small.
Sure.
I'm just like, anybody in my mind who's from the East Coast is bigger. But then again, I'm from the East Coast and in my mind, I'm like 6 feet tall and like, I'm definitely 5'2". So there's that.
I think everyone on earth is my height. Kinsey, who we were in Grand Crew with, it's so funny because I think she's like my height, but I also think like Phil Jackson is my height, Dan Gore is my height.
It's crazy.
They're all my height.
It's crazy. I wonder what kind of mental health issue is that? Because I have it, you know. I have it. But
exactly.
so you come from the East Coast. You did something very special in film school, which is that you actually did the work. And that is what got you to where you are today.
I think even more to that, not to shade when you don't complete a project, because it's hard to complete projects, but you learn a lot from messing up. And you learn.
I'll shade it. I think I'll shade it.
You learn. It's such an important skill to learn that you can mess up. And I think especially, and I'm sure this is similar in a lot of immigrant communities, the immigrants don't like a mistake.
No.
So it's really important to learn that it is okay to make a mistake. I'm from the type of family, you get sick and your dad's like, why did you get a cold? I'm like, I guess because I'm a fucking idiot. I don't know. Why did I get a cold? I don't know.
Wait, but because I'm just like, you seem to almost be instilled with this mistakes are okay because your parents didn't really force you to do stuff.
It's a weird combo.
So I'm just like, things. Did it just happen to you or were you just always like that?
Well, here's the thing, because like my older sibling is so successful, this, that, and the third. There was never any chance I would become like that. So I was like, I'm not in the same. You're playing soccer. I'm playing golf. We're not doing the same thing at all.
Yes.
So, and nobody in my family knows golf. So I have to just learn how to do this on my own and make mistakes privately, kind of. I think being able to make my mistakes privately where nobody can give any feedback.
Nobody knows what you're doing.
Nobody knows what I'm talking about. If I majored in economics, I am sure I'd have a really different relationship to failure. But it's like, I made a bad documentary in school. They're like, what is a documentary? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. What a charmed experience, and from my perspective, to be able to like play in that way, because this is one of the things, and I think I've talked about this on this podcast before, I really struggle with play, even though I am a comedian. And I don't think writing jokes and playing are the same now that I've been doing it for so long. Like, I think you do both really well. You write jokes and you play a lot. You're extremely playful in the room and stuff like that. I don't even know if I have a question for that. It's just something that I know that like,
that's so nice.
Sometimes I kind of wish that I was a little bit more like playful, I think
that's the improv for me that made that come out. Cause I seriously, one of the things I talk about most in therapy is an aversion to making mistakes. And it's just so weird that my career is based in making a ton of mistakes. I think it's like almost like exposure therapy. I constantly, I'm also someone who will shoot her shot a lot. So like even colleges, my high school was super competitive, even though it was just a public school. I applied to like 12 colleges. I got into 3. And they were like my 8th and 9th choice schools, which is so psycho to say, because I know NYU is a good school. I just didn't want to go there. And,
interesting.
I remember a friend telling me, because a lot of my friends got into like Harvard, Wellesley, Carnegie Mellon, like really fucking top tier schools. Like I was all over that US News and World Report list of like what the best schools in America were. So I knew their schools ranked higher than the ones I got into. And one of my friends was like, at the time I was like, shut the fuck up. She was like, you're going to have experience with rejection and failure a lot earlier than some of our friends that got into like Princeton or whatever. I was like, shut up. But it's true.
Yeah,
I like really had to be like, okay, I didn't get into my top school. Like at NYU, I got into the College of Arts and Sciences. So I wasn't even in the film school. And 2 months in, I was miserable. And I had to be like, make it not miserable. Like, you can do it. Like, either get out of here or apply to the film school or something. So I applied to the film school and I worked really hard on that application and I got in. And it was like, oh, I changed that for myself and made this a school I wanted to be at. And so it's like, I do think that there is that ability to like be like, cool, you didn't get that writing fellowship, you didn't get that comedy gig. Awesome. What's the thing you can make for yourself? Like, what can you control? We don't control what these freakos out here are saying yes and no to. What do you control?
Whoa. Rekha, what you just said is crazy. Crazy. So you're saying that you can control your experience to a certain extent by making choices. Huh. Wow.
Fucked up.
Yeah. Wait. So I love this mindset that you have. I think that this is an incredibly mature mindset.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. It's incredibly mature. I mean, it seems to, and it seems like you have almost, if I may say, a very healthy inner dialogue, because your inner dialogue is very much like, hey, let's make this fun.
That's like the 10th draft of the inner dialogue.
Right.
If we're writing a script, the first draft, like recently I wanted to get an interview. I just wanted to get an interview for a job and I didn't get it. And I was like, damn, what the fuck? This fucking sucks. Why didn't you get the interview? You're totally, like that kind of shit. And they're like, hey, who cares? Like, that's one job. There's so many things out there. And then like, I do try to like flip that stuff to be like, I don't control who gets that interview. What do I control? Okay, I'm going to write a stupid sketch for myself. And that'll be what I do at this time. Or like, I'll go, work on my feature more, or like do something that's art. Like, it's just so sad, Charlotte, the industry we've chosen. It's so reliant on random particles and people like, have you ever gotten a thing because like you just happen to text someone, be like, oh, hey, remember this funny thing? And they're like, yeah, hey, actually, I'm hired. And you're like, what? I didn't even mean for that.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I try to be very like positive, you know what I mean? When I'm talking to like young, fresh, about to break in, because it's not that it's not fun. It's not that. Mm-hmm. And I almost feel like, as a matter of fact, I think everybody talks about how fun it is, and somebody needs to talk about the real stuff so that we can like actually figure out how to navigate in the times when it's not fun.
Completely, because it's a marathon, right? And it's like, when it feels like it's sprint, that's when stuff is kind of popping up like magic. And it's like, great, take those opportunities too. But during those downtimes, when you're not working for a year, or during the writer's strike, the most recent, like
100%.
time when everybody wasn't working, I was really depressed during that time. It's so much about like, all right, what can I control? And so like, I started writing TikToks for myself. And guess what? Didn't enjoy it. Didn't have fun. And I found that out. And it's just like, cool, I tried that. Now, like, what's the other thing I can try that I control? Because it's just like this industry is so miserable. And like,
sometimes,
the coolest person you'll have ever met will be like, I can't sell a show. And the absolute dumbest fucking troll you've met will be like, I did 55 shows last night. And you're like,
it's literally true. It's literally like the person who you think is a genius, like cannot sell a show, and you're just like,
what am I doing if you can't? Or they'll like sell a show, and you'll be like, this is the funniest show I've ever seen. Fuck, I'll never make anything that funny, and then it'll be canceled the next morning,
tomorrow,
and you'll see there an 85 season pickup of the dumbest troll like just got picked up. And like, cool. I don't know.
Well, you know what? Part of me wonders, part of me is like, is this like, just history repeating itself? Like, because I know there's always ups and downs and like peaks in the industry and downtimes in the industry and things like that. But we have lived through, the two of us, a very specific time in the entertainment industry, which is this shift to streaming. You know what I mean? And I honestly, to a certain extent, feel like we are the human casualties of this shift, because it's like, or maybe our creativity is the casualty of this shift, because we came into TV at a time when there was so much opportunity and availability of places to really express yourself and put your work out into the world. And it can really mess with you, I think. And to a certain extent, I think it's shifting the industry fundamentally. Like, it's really making me wonder, like, because Issa Rae had she had done some award show, I think, or she was in Time. And I was reading that article, and she was saying that she's thinking that, like, her development projects are drying up because of the industry slowing down. I know. And then she was talking about how and then she was talking about how she thinks that the move is she's making moves to make herself more independent. And to me, this is really the way forward, because it's just like, this industry doesn't particularly care about our desire to create.
Totally.
Like, it doesn't care. Yeah.
It's like interesting you brought up streaming, because it's like, at first blush, it's like, wow, there's more networks, there's more places where they need a TV show. So there's more opportunities for you, a new writer, maybe, to get your idea seen, and there's more voices. So it's like, it didn't work for Netflix. Well, actually, that's kind of more of a Hulu thing or whatever. But the weird thing that happens is, like, great, you'll see all these things that get picked up for one season and then kibosh. And then you'll never hear that creator do something with them again. Or like, they get 8 episodes to try their shot, and you're like, what is 8 episodes? Like, we're coming from a world where there were 22 episodes of a show that could have been also bad, maybe.
Right. And a lot of times was very bad.
Yeah. And you're like, it's just such a really bizarre cocktail of, like, more options, less sustained work. Kind of. You're just having a real, like, and that's why that marathon thing to me is so important, because it's just like, I might have to keep looking for a new job every, like, 5 months if I'm working, like, at all. And then have to realize that maybe I won't have a job for 2 more years. And then maybe even if I get it, it might just be 5 months. And it's like, that's hell.
In this, at this time in the industry, that's exactly what it feels like. That's exactly what it feels like. I don't know. It's been tough to deal with, but I've also always wanted to do more independent stuff, like, because of even when the industry was really good. Like, for example, I did this really fun podcast that I love called The Secret Lives of Black Women, and I did it with Stitcher. And, Stitcher, like, even though I still own that podcast, Stitcher kind of, like, controls it, and they kind of own it, because, like, I don't have access to it.
Yeah.
I don't like, I can't, like, just enter into the podcast, and change shit, if I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So it's just like, the irritation that I get of not having, like, real, full, complete control over the things that I do, like, has always been there. And so it kind of makes me feel like this is a time to kind of, like, put up or shut up, like, totally. You keep saying you want to do your own thing. So yeah,
it's so tough, because it's like, you see a show, you brought up Issa Rae, like Insecure, an incredible show, 4 seasons, was stuck in development hell for so long.
3 years or some shit. Yeah.
Something like that. Because I remember I watched Awkward Black Girl, and then it was like, I read that her Kickstarter did so well, she, like, got Pharrell's attention, whatever, for the 2nd season of Awkward Black Girl. And then it was like, and now Larry Wilmer's going to help her make a new TV show. And then it felt like 45 years later, Insecure came out. And it's like, whoa. And that happened to be successful. But, like, if that had lasted 1 season, it's just like, damn, Issa Rae just spent, like, how many
4
years?
Yeah.
it's just crazy. And that, you know, not to say like I don't know what was going on behind the scenes with HBO or whatever, but that was for like a good show. It's just like, God forbid if that happens and your show doesn't do well or whatever, you only get one season. It's just like having stuff that you can control, the timeline and the like, you know, creativity of it all. It's like so important, but then it's like, okay, where do you get the money for Pharrell's not knocking on my door, actually. So.
It's not knocking on all of our doors, you know? By the way, just so anyone listening knows, my dog just farted and it's so gnarly that it's literally singeing my nostrils. So, and I'm going to continue on.
Just in case you guys want to know, and
it's
you hear
brutal.
Something if you hear any grumbling or pig noises in the background, my roommate's dog is sitting right next to me, and that is what she sounds like.
Wonderful. Damn. I don't hear anything, but
okay, that's awesome. And I don't smell anything. That's awesome.
Well, good for you. Yeah. So with all this depressing shit that we're talking about, despite it being depressing, it is the reality of the industry that we're in, and we have to be really clear-eyed about it. So tell me what you've been doing then in the time that these dark times that we've had.
Okay. So one thing, and I feel like you do this because I maybe I think this about people that just don't live in LA proper because maybe it's not their scene or whatever. You must simply take care of you in the best way possible. Because like I lived in New York, you lived in New York. There's a mentality there. It's like go, go, go. Even if you're pushing yourself too much, push yourself farther. And that can work sometimes. But a thing I've had to like really learn, sometimes the hard way, is just like if your brain is not, it does not have bandwidth, you don't even know what it is like to have bandwidth. Like you don't know the other side of what it could be like if you had more mental bandwidth and were like in a town you like, or in an apartment you like, or had even your friends, like, you know, that could be such a thing where you come up with improv friends and then maybe it's like, oh, maybe I don't feel good hanging out with this group of people anymore. Like all these things you can kind of change in your life and over time that change for you, and nothing bad has to have happened, but just like that are changing about you that you need as you get older. And I feel like I am so bad at that. And then it's like, I'll be like, no, wake up every morning before your full-time job and work on this feature, work on this pilot, whatever. And then I had time off between two jobs and was like, what if I took a vacation that wasn't to see family? Which is, I never, ever, ever do that. I only ever travel to the East Coast to see family, and that is my vacation. And it's actually not a vacation to have a bunch of aunties tell you look bad all the time.
Yes.
That actually doesn't count as a vacation.
Yeah.
That literally doesn't count. And so I was like, I'm going to go to Portland. And
I love it.
I went to Portland for a week. I wrote
solo or with friends?
Solo. And I wrote part of my favorite sample. And this shouldn't be the reason, but I happened to write my favorite sample I've ever written.
Yeah.
There.
I love it.
What the fuck? And that's because I took a vacation?
Yeah.
That's crazy. You just don't know.
This is some grown woman shit, Rekha.
Listen.
Not seeing your family, this is fantastic.
I love my family, but sometimes you have to take a break. And like, so like, I think that's important, keeping that clean up here.
Yeah.
And like making sure like this industry is so abnormal and you can be around such freaky, weird energy with people. That's what I meant about like friends, like, you know, being in circles where people be talking about the industry all the time. You're like, I don't know your last name. I don't know what town you're from. I don't know what your interests are outside of this industry. We only talk about this. Or like, I get really intimidated when people are like, oh, you know Tom at Netflix? Oh my God, he sealed this deal with Sarah and whatever. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We came up through UCB. I know comedy. I don't know execs. And so that energy in this industry can be really disarming. And it's like, so I always have to say like, hey, if you don't like that energy, that's okay. You got this far without needing to possess read the trades every single day and whatever, know who's shopping what at where, and just having friends that do other things that aren't in comedy, or like you do have friends that are comedy, but you don't have to talk about it all the time. So just like knowing yourself and like who makes you feel yourself and makes you feel normal. I feel like is helpful during those times when you have a dry spell and you're like, what's everyone else doing? It's like, hey,
right.
That actually couldn't matter less.
Oh my God. Our industry has changed so freaking much because real talk is as short as 3 or 4 years ago, it did matter. You know, like that shit did matter. Like if you were or were not working or whatever, or like who's doing what, you know, it's just a complete shift.
Okay. And Charlotte, that is my kind mental talking.
Yeah.
Because I am secretly still like, of course it matters if so-and-so is working and I'm not working.
Course.
Even though there's no connection to either. It's not like if he's working, I can't be or whatever.
Right.
But it does mean something in my brain. And I know that I'm going to start to stink if I don't get another job, you know, like after a year. I know it doesn't actually mean anything about me as a person, but it's all these freakos in the industry that are putting that on us, that are being like, oh, she doesn't know so-and-so, or she hasn't been working in a year. I'm like, you're a stinko. I don't like that. And I want to do my best to avoid working in that energy.
Why are you so freaking cracking me up, Rekha? You're not. You're a stinko. That's so stupid. You're a stinko. It's totally true. But like, for real, this stuff is... attitudes have shifted. It's like underlying still the same basically, but like I just feel like in general like attitudes have shifted.
Well,
you know,
even like Phil Jackson, I talk about him like he's my son or something.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, he makes me think. Phil Jackson, showrunner of Grand Crew, he makes me think, okay, stuff is turning. You can be Phil is normal. Phil is so normal. And he a normal showrunner. A normal man that's a showrunner, who could believe it? He's like,
you know what I think about? Here's a secret about Phil Jackson.
Tell me.
Which I asked him to be on the show. You know, he's busy, you know, whatever. I'm sure he'll come on at some point. So I'm like, I haven't been able to have this conversation about him, but he's a businessman. He's a secret businessman who happens to be funny because he worked in advertising before he worked in TV, which is a phenomenal industry to come from, to be in TV, because it is literally the function of our industry is to sell things to people. So it's like, wow, what a wonderful background, you know?
It's incredibly, and it's a great thing that you point out because it's like, oh, that the way he runs a room seems unattainable to me because it's just like, it's just his personality. It's like, no. He's doing skills. He knows how to manage people. He knows how to bring out your strength and your strength.
He really does. And that is a very rare thing. That is a skill. It's a very rare thing to see in a writer's room or from a showrunner.
Exactly. You know? And to know how to like build rapport. He was having us like hang out before so that we like each other as people, because going into a room, it's such a weird, sensitive environment potentially.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody felt this way, but I felt very safe in that room to like pitch a stupid idea.
Absolutely. He definitely made it. He made it that. Yeah. For sure. He's a treat, but this interview is about you, and I want to get back to you after we take a short break. And we're back. Rekha, so you're also an actress.
Sure.
I remember I was watching, what the fuck was it? It's the show on HBO.
Hacks.
Hacks. I was watching Hacks. And lo and behold, I see a woman I recognize in a line.
Thank you.
Rekha Shankar in Hacks.
Yes.
Cameo, or not a cameo, a guest spot.
Oh my God, I would love it to be a cameo. That's like, wow, it's Rekha. Yeah. We know who that is. Oh my God.
Hilarious. Let's just call it a cameo, because people should know who you are. You know what I mean? But anyway, so I tried to do that thing. I tried to like audition and like do stand up at night, like be in the writer's room all day and like, and I had to stop. I had to tell my reps, stop it, because I can't do all of it, you know, and I'm not enjoying it. Stop it, you know. Sometimes you got to tell your reps, stop it, you know. like Issa really put us all in this like multi-hyphenate, hellscape of like, you do everything.
I directed this, I produced it, I AP'd it, I actually wrote it, I actually sang it. If you look at the tracks, I sang all of that. It's all be-doo, 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 boo-boo from me.
Oh my God. It's such a joke. But anyway, I'm genuinely like, you honestly really did it very effortlessly. Like you were fully engaged in the room, and then I would see you on things and I'm just like, what is this? What's happening? What is that about?
I love performing. I think I started improv because I wanted to be a better writer, and then was like, holy shit, I love improv. But I just didn't know I'd be any good at it for the same reasons I'm sure many people worry, because it's so scary. You don't know what you're doing. You don't see people like you doing it. But I got the improv bug. I was doing it very, very often in New York and fucking up. And it was an incredible place to fuck up because I felt horrible every time coming home from a show on the subway. And I would journal about like every mistake I thought I made, which is actually incredible, which is so beautiful to do. We should all be so conscious of every mistake we ever make in an improv scene.
Oh my God. Hilarious.
It did kind of serve as a compass for me of like, oh, I really like performing. How can I do this more? And I didn't have the answer to that. And then I started working at College Humor, and I felt like I was flexing my writing muscles, but still wasn't flexing performing. I would just write stuff that you could kind of put anybody in that character role. Like, you just need someone to say like, hey, that's unusual. And it didn't have to be me. It was the type of sketch I was writing. And so when I left College Humor, I was like, I need to really try to figure this out more. And that is really scary for me. That's where I'm like those kids in film school that couldn't finish, an editing project. I'm like, but I don't know how, I don't want to. So I've been really trying to force myself, whether it's like I took an audition class very recently. It was the first acting class I've ever taken. And it was very scary, but it was really helpful. And I try to like really just make the thing I'm auditioning for funny to me, because that's all you can do, because I don't know what they're looking for. And even being on Grand Crew, you see, like, you watch tapes and it's like, these two people did equally a good job, and they'll be like, oh, but actually her hair is 1 inch shorter, and that actually works better. And you're like, huh?
100%.
The other girl could grow her hair or cut her own hair.
100%.
And it's just, you don't control any of that shit.
So arbitrary.
It's even scarier to me than writing. Like, writing, you don't control a lot of stuff. But I at least have a little more aware of the thing I'm sending in. Whereas like acting, it's like, I don't know. And I've only there's a reason I only have a couple credits. It's just like, I'm not super seasoned at it. I want to get better at it. That's like a thing I'm consciously making against 2024.
I love it.
I keep my resolutions really general. So my goal is to just perform more and better. That's just general goal. I don't have to book anything. I probably won't. But
wonderful.
I do think even also just like being in the writer's room too kind of like flexes a little bit of a performing muscle, because pitching is performing a lot of the time.
100%.
And you can see those like kind of shyer writers that are really, really good, but maybe just don't know how to business person like sell their idea, Yeah. And some of the stuff, it's like just the way you flavor it makes people laugh, and that flavoring gets infused into the script when they put it in. And it's like, you could have the same idea with like less of a POV, less of like kind of a sauce on it. And it's like, I don't get it. I don't see how it would work. And so I like that aspect of a writer's room too. I don't quite remember what your original question was, but
doesn't matter.
I probably knocked it out of the park with the answer.
You hit it. No, you 100% hit it. I have so many more questions for you, but I feel like I kind of want to ask this one first, which is, you mentioned writing a sample in Portland, and I had like a nerd stalked you when we were about to be on a show together, even though I knew you.
Yeah.
But I was just like, this is Rekha. And I read your was
it my Pen 15?
Your Pen 15 that was on your website.
Yes.
And it was so good, Rekha.
Oh my
it was
God,
so
Charlotte?
fucking good. I was like,
that's so nice.
Rekha's So good, because it literally made me feel like I was watching a Pen 15 episode by reading
Can
it.
you get Anna and Maya on this show and ask them to reboot the series and get me right?
I was like, wow.
I wrote that.
Excellent.
That's so nice of you. I wrote that literally because I could not get staffed anywhere.
Get out.
I did not know. I like you know that thing where you're like, I'm so lucky I have a rep. I have samples that they say are good, but nobody's biting. And you're like, what can I do to change this? Like, there's that like Albert Einstein quote that's like, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Like, it's like illogical. So I'm like, great. Let me not submit the same sample that seems to be appealing to nobody. And there was just no answers. It was like, yeah, your sample's good. Yeah, just you didn't get it. You didn't get an interview. You didn't get an interview. I'm like, okay. So I wrote that the same kind of theme of what I'm talking about. It's just like, I know literally no one on earth takes spec scripts, but I don't have time to think of an entirely new pilot. So I haven't written a spec script in a million years. Let me take a show I really love right now that I would love to write for. And in the event that someone sees it, even though nobody ever like gets a job for the show they're trying to write for, crazy. Let me see, and just put it out into the universe that like, hey, it's pandemic. I'm still writing. Here's a show you all know. No, there's no buy-in. You've already seen the show. Here's my episode of it. It was just like an attempt to be like, I have control over something in my life.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Did that show end up getting you a job?
No.
I mean, did that spec script end up
getting you a job? No, not one soul. Actually, maybe you're the only one who read it. On planet Earth.
That is so fucking funny.
I put
and
it
also
on my website
terribly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then I want to know then from that, how much are you writing? Like, do you write like a sample every year?
Yeah.
Every 2 years? Like, what's your plan?
Before getting staffed, so my first job was on Animaniacs. And before that, I didn't have a methodology to it, except that like, it was kind of an internal feeling of like, I feel like the sample's not getting me anything. Do I have something else in me? Let's see. And sometimes I'll go through spurts of like, wake up in the morning for 10 minutes, write down ideas for TV shows, just into a document, put it all on one list so that you can have that experience people talk about where 2 years later, they look at a document and go, oh, that's a good idea. And so I did have something like that going, but all those ideas were like, not great. And so like after Animaniacs, before Animaniacs, I had been kind of like, anytime I just felt like this is stale, or like I read this and I go, this isn't me anymore. That's been the case some of the time. And I try again. And I'm a very structure-based person. So I took Ben Axelrad's pilot writing class.
Love that class. Mm-hmm.
I love that class. And I took it. I took that and I took Scott Reynolds' class twice. He's in New York and he's great too. So I took a total of like 3 of those TV writing classes. And it's like, if I'm getting the same information essentially each time, but I just personally need that to like create structure. Otherwise, I'm not going to write a sample a year. What? That's fucking crazy. So in Ben's class, I wrote a sample because I had been thinking about how much I love boy bands. I'm like, why don't I write a boy band pilot? That sounds really fun to me. So I did a big deep dive on boy band history and all this stuff. I read an encyclopedia about boy bands and shit like that. And I wrote a boy band pilot that's like, this was really fun. I kind of want to make this one. And that was my sample. And lo and behold, 1 year later, I went, this is okay. I don't need to make that. I think that is the sample. That might have been the sample Phil read for Grand Crew. Is that one. So I think that's the first thing I ever, like, because for Animaniacs, they actually read my SNL packet. Because Animaniacs is like a sketch show. But I think that was my first half hour thing that got me staffed. And so from there, it was like I read that sample and it's like my manager still said it needed work and whatever. So it's like, they got me a job, but these jobs keep ending. So I guess this sample still needs to be good. So I either need to revise it or write a new one. And that was around when I went to Portland and was like, maybe let's try a new one. And I like that one so much better. I had also heard Frasier was coming back, and that's my favorite show. So I wrote
talked about it.
I know. I wrote a multicam to be like, I can write a multicam, and I was like, wait, this actually ruled. So I'm not.
What's the idea? What's a sample?
So I'm actually in development with it right now, which is psychotic. Listen, I never thought that would happen with me. I never thought, Charlotte, because it's so hard. How do you do any of this shit? It's all like you making crap up. Like,
yeah, isn't it nuts?
It's fucking nuts. And
but then you also get to make crap up. You get to literally
make your
spontaneously create your career.
Exactly. And so your original question is like, am I methodical? Do I have a schedule? It's like, yes and no. I have a very general kind of idea or schedule in mind, which is I always like to have one or two things I can be working on. So I'm writing a feature that in theory I'm going to film myself. If someone wants to give me money, that's awesome. But I work on that a little bit every day. And that is a nice thing to just kind of return to. And then when I don't want to work on that, I have
I have an even more granular question for that. When you're working on this feature, do you start with a beat sheet and then you get into an outline and then you write the actual
This is an awesome question. Feature. This is my first feature and I took a class. Tim Meenan has an incredible feature writing class.
Where? It's his
online.
Personal class? Okay.
And it's so fucking helpful. And his strategy is first you focus, who the hell is your protagonist? Just know them very well in whatever form that takes. Paragraphs, bullet points, some sort of diagram, whatever. Then I think it's what is a one paragraph summary of what you think your movie is. And then I think you move into really granular, really basic, what does your protagonist do? And then he gives you a chart that's so movies break down this page through this page, this typically happens. What is your equivalent of that? This page through this page, this typically happens. What's your equivalent? It's really scientific.
Great.
Which helps me. And
I love it.
The way he structures it was a little spooky at first. He's you write an act a week and you don't go back and look at the act that you just wrote. You bring it in and you read it and everyone gives you notes, but you don't then go that week and edit it. You write the next act. So at the end, the thing you have, unreadable. It's 5 unrelated acts, but it's cool because as you're writing it, you're I kind of wrote her as more bullish and strong-headed in the beginning. I actually don't think that's who she is by Act 4. By Act 4, I've kind of fallen into this character game or whatever. And then you can go back and revise that, but it's kind of cool. It's you get to write 5 different versions of the person a little bit and kind of settle on something that felt easier or better.
Very cool.
And then after that you clean that shit up. But I found that method really helpful and is not how I write at all. I tend to be cool, I'll write the entire thing in 1 week and then I'll edit it for 60 years.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, that was really helpful for me. And now I go through and I actually have it here. I go through and I make lists of to-dos that are character to-dos, story to-dos.
You make this list?
Yeah. Jokes and structural things. And I do this with help notes from friends, but I compile it all into these categories because I need every big thing to be small things. So I make it sometimes it'll be this character don't make no sense. I'm that's too big and scary of a note.
Yeah.
So I'm why doesn't that character make sense? Oh, they don't have a good backstory. They don't have a good point of view. They don't have a funny game. And their dialogue is not good. I'm great, that's 4 steps. That's not one big thing.
One giant step. I love that technique. That's really, really smart. I love that. Thank you for giving me that. I'm going to use that.
Please, anybody use it.
And then now I feel since I got that, I really want to ask you about your experience at College Humor, because this is one of the things that I'm just we're amongst a showrunner. You know what I mean? You have run a College Humor essentially.
Yeah.
So I'm just you're an executive and you're a big shot. So
well, I'm greenlighting you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, anything specifically about that time, or
I mean, I think because you hadn't worked in TV yet, right? Like you hadn't been staffed yet.
no, I had a
Like
very like, so I got College Humor in 2017, and I like 5 months later got to be the head writer, which was just like a timing thing because our previous head writer was moving up to be like creative VP. Great,
okay.
great showrunner, great, best, one of the best people I've ever worked for, Mike Trapp. And so I got to kind of watch him, which was really helpful. And I would say I was really my strange behaviors and work ethic had served me well because when I got that job, I had already written and edited sketches on my own in New York because I wasn't getting comedy work. And if I was, there's a lot of video editing stuff. And I was like, I don't want people to look at me as a video editor. I need to show them I'm a comedian. So I started writing stuff for myself. And I was like, well, I can edit this. So that's nice. And then I would edit it myself, but I was putting out sketches. And it was like this weird thing where people were like, oh, yeah, you write sketches, right? I'm like, I made that happen. That's crazy. No one asked me that before. People were just having me edit their stuff.
I love that.
Rock. So I made myself do that several times a year, just produce sketches. So I did have that basis when becoming head writer of like, oh, I know how to edit and I know how to cull stuff and I know how production in a basic way works. So I know like, oh, this sketch takes place in multiple locations. Can we condense it? Like those things I'm aware of. And I think my editing background also helped because when doing head writer stuff, like basically my main job was like during the pitch meeting, I assign the pitches that I think work the best for what College Humor is. When people write the sketch, I and everybody else give notes on it that are like, here's some joke ideas. Here's a totally new framework. You wrote this to be happening at the desks. Could it be a film noir scene instead, just to make it more fun because it's a sketch and we can kind of do that. And then once we shoot it, my job is to watch the edit and try to get it down to its like funniest parts and things like that. So that I felt I was really primed for by just like what I was doing before, a lot of like self-started crap on my YouTube. Yeah. And the one part I did not feel prepared for, we talked about Phil Jackson being a businessman. You gotta be a fucking business person to run a room. And that is a big regret I have of just like, I think I could have had a little more, not even confidence, but just like the ability to know that like you're managing a group of people, like bring out their strengths. Like I would hope people would say the environment was good, but I think I could have done better to be like, hey, you're really good at character sketches. Why don't we make this like a character sketch instead of like a game sketch or like a premise sketch? I think I could have done that so much better. And I just didn't know at the time. And
you didn't have any kind of examples. No one teaches you.
You have to just observe.
Have you found it difficult to go from being basically a showrunner or a head writer at College Humor to being like to not being in charge in a room?
Charlotte, I found it to be incredible because I don't have to manage anyone. And that's
wonderful.
Actually really awesome. It's so incredible because I don't know if you feel this way because you're the oldest, right, of your siblings?
I am.
You I am. And it's weird because I'm the youngest, but because what is that phrase? Like the burden of competence, like the equivalent of like, I'm not good at washing the dishes. Can you wash them? You're really good at it.
Yeah. Right.
Where you end up taking on a lot of like the stuff that other people get to be bad at. I think this is also a person of color thing. And anyone who, is femme at all kind of thing. And marginalized in any way thing. Where it's just like you have to be mommy and other people get to be baby. And it's not that it's intentional, but just like how many times have you been in a work environment where someone's like, sorry, what did they say? What's going on? You're like, I had to pay attention that whole time to tell you what's going on.
You're right.
Because I'm mommy and you get to be baby.
Right.
So when I was just like staff writer or story editor, I was like, I get to be
I'm
baby. Not doing that, but I get to be baby.
Yeah.
And that
to a certain
actually
extent.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I love to be baby. And I'll work my way up to mommy.
Yeah.
But it's really, people really don't talk about People don't talk about the benefits of being
somehow
mommy.
Very weird. Yeah.
Put that in a textbook.
Yeah.
It's hard to be mommy.
Yeah. I love it. What great insights you've given us today, Rekha Shankar. What a brilliant lady. Oh my goodness.
Charlotte, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I love this conversation. What would you, I guess, leave us with, you know?
Okay. 2 pieces of advice that I have received have strangely come from a very similar source. I was on an airplane once and I saw the True Hollywood special of Heidi Klum, True Hollywood Story. And she said this phrase that I have thought about my whole life, or since when I saw this, which is, plenty of people are going to say no to you. You can't say no to yourself. Huge. Huge. If you're just like pitching ideas in a room, if you already hate the thing coming out of your mouth, why would anybody else like it? You know?
Yeah.
Or if you hate your sample, it's like, that's totally fine to hate it. You're allowed to make something that's bad. What would it look like if you found a way to try to like it? Like, what are the changes that would make you like it? Like, framing it that way instead of like, oh, this didn't get me a job. How can I change it so I like it more? That I found really helpful. And shooting your shot, like asking, you know, hey, can you think of me when you're staffing for this or looking for this? I really would love to work with you. No harm in that. Don't say no to yourself. Huge. And then I was watching an episode of Project Runway. The Heidi Klum gang strikes again.
Stages, yeah.
And someone said, there's no failure, only feedback. This was recent. This was like 3 months ago. And I was like, what the fuck? Because I'd be failing and I'd be going, damn, I suck. And it's
that don't feel like no feedback.
It don't feel like feedback at all. And I'm like, so when I view this feedback, especially as I'm trying to perform more and I get notes on my tapes that are like, hey, can you redo this entirely? And I'm like, oh, damn, I suck at. It's like, how nice that someone's telling me what I could do better. And in theory, I'm only going to get better at this. I'm not going to get worse. It might take me a really, really long time to get better. But if I keep trying, I'm probably going to get a little bit better. Even just like one tiny, instead of, can you redo all 3 scenes, all 10 scenes? Can you redo one of them? Maybe. And so I try to look at things as really incremental like that. Like, just say yes to yourself along the way. Just like, those failures fucking suck. Journal about it. Vent to your friends. They don't gotta mean shit about you in the long run or holistically. And that, like, yeah, just like anything you can do to control the output you're making. Whatever that is. Just like, if it's making a TikTok, awesome. If it's a fucking tweet, who cares? Right. Just do it, because it's so brutal waiting for other people, and then when they say no, you go, damn, that was my shot. And it's like, well, it was only a shot because you had to wait around and blah blah blah. If you put up a tweet that nobody likes, you're not like, damn, that was my shot.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just so much more expendable, and you can have those big mistakes and failures. So those are the 18 things I would say, I guess.
I love it, man. Oh my goodness. You've given me the fuzzies, Rekha. I appreciate you so much.
Oh my God, you too, Charlotte.
Absolutely.
You're an
what a
incredible
pleasure.
manager, by the way.
I'm learning. So much feedback. Wow.
No failure, only feedback.
Yeah, lots and lots of feedback. It's not an easy job. But yeah. Thank you so much, Rekha Shankar. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
What an excellent episode with Rekha Shankar. What she said about not saying no to yourself really hit home with me, because I think this is one of the hardest things to do, especially as a creative, especially as like a more sensitive person or someone who has perfectionistic tendencies. It's really hard to notice when we're being resistant towards ourselves and to give ourselves kind of that space to relax and say yes, to be open and relaxed and allow things to happen. So what a cool concept to take away from the episode. I got a lot from this episode. I hope you did too. One thing before I leave, I want to let you know that the Working Writer School is going to be having a live networking workshop and mixer on Zoom. I'm going to be teaching people how to network, how to build a network, and we're going to be doing small group breakout rooms so that people can meet each other individually. It's going to be Wednesday, February 21st at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I hope you can make it. The link will be down in the description. And I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. That's all I got. Until next time, get out there, get to work.